Hey, it's Tim here. The 23.2 coming soon page has just been released and we're right off the back of conference. So let's find out what made this release from conference. Let's get stuck in. Okay, so whenever this page comes out, I always like to preface the sort of messaging by saying, look, this is just what's been announced. The release is not out yet, but it's a pretty good indicator of what's going to be in the release. The other thing to bear in mind is that not all the features actually make this page. There are some features that are sort of small print when the release actually comes out. So we're going to wait for the Tableau release navigator. I've already made a video about that goes into the detail for each release, showing what's changed, what's new, and what's getting updated for all the platforms. Now, because this is 23.2, 23.1 was the server and cloud update. This is just going to be the cloud update, so there won't be these features available in Tableau server just yet. They'll come in the next release, 23.3. But nonetheless, yeah, let's get stuck into these features and find out what's new. So during conference, we did have a little bit of a sort of a showcase of some of the new chart types. One that we didn't see on stage was actually this, the ability to change lines to now have patterns. So we have the ability to do dotted lines and well, two types of dotted lines. It seems like there's one with sort of slightly less gaps and one with a lot more gaps. I don't know how to describe that. Dash and dotted lines, I guess, is the official terming. So if we look at this, line patterns offer new styling capabilities, allow an author to select any trend line to be represented as a solid or dashed or dotted line. So exactly that. And this new capability makes it easier to convey nuance when representing multiple trends. Pretty simple, pretty standard, long overdue. It's one of those ones that's been on the to-do list, I'm sure, for a long while over in the community forums as well. So good to see that here. Multi-row calculations in Tableau Prep. This is actually quite nice. This is quite, this is one of those features that actually you don't realize how useful it is until you start using it. I've been using multi-row calcs in Alteryx for years. I just can't live without it when you're doing data prep. It's just such an easy way of getting around problems. And sometimes when you're doing computations like averages and sums, multi-row calculations are how you bake in things like moving averages and running totals into a data set. So you can then create analytical numerical numbers much easier in Tableau. Think of it as a way of taking out table calcs from the table calculation capabilities in Tableau and baking it into your data so you can have really performant data sets. So I really like this feature, and I also like the way Tableau Prep has done it. I have to say, Tableau Prep might not be as fully fledged as something like Alteryx, but the features they keep adding, keep making it get closer and closer. And the interface that they have in Tableau Prep, in my opinion, is above none. So I think very soon Tableau Prep will be a very, very powerful tool going toe for toe with Alteryx. But of course I'd say that Tableau Tim. Anyway, let's see what we can do with this. Using clicks, not code, or complex calculations, hint, hint, it's easier than ever to calculate difference from, percent difference from, and moving calculations. You can also write lookup calculations in the expressions of Tableau Prep. So that's quite good. And hopefully with some of the Tableau GPT stuff coming out in the future, we can write those even faster or not have to write them at all. Personal access tokens, admin controls. Now, this was actually announced at Tableau conference. I didn't end up covering Tableau server content for that because a lot of it is coming out here and Tableau Cloud is kind of weird in that sense. So what I wanted to do is actually just wait for the release and we will actually see what's in this release, but also have the other features when they get announced, just covering them then. So personal access tokens, admin control. Essentially what's happening here is that admins are getting the ability to more finely control personal access tokens. Now, personal access tokens were a new, think of it as a way of authenticating an application by giving them essentially a secret and a key, and secret and keys, oh gosh, I never get this terminology right, but long story short, you go into Tableau server or Tableau Cloud, you get a personal access token. It's essentially a really long number. You can only see it once, so once you've seen it, you're never shown that number again. You put that into an application. The idea is that you don't save that anywhere in any notebook. You just put it in the application, and once you put it in the application, that's it. The only two things that know what that key is the application and Tableau. And then they can communicate and work with each other happily, but the thing is that these expire, and also in the past, admins haven't been able to create them and sort of put restrictions around them. And so that's what this is essentially doing. There's a few changes to Tableau Cloud sites. Site admins can now control who has the ability to create PATs, personal access tokens. Site admins can now control how long PATs are valid, ranging from 1 to 365 days, essentially a year. Changes for Tableau Cloud sites include, after 23.2, PATs are disabled by default, and default expiry of pat shortened to 180 days. So they're changing some defaults and they're changing the way certain things work. But fundamentally, site admins can now control who has the ability to create pats, and site admins can also now control how long pats are valid, ranging from 1 to 365. Anyway, that's a really nice set of features. I'm sure people who are using personal access tokens are probably appreciating this. You have to be in a very specific type of setting. It's not the kind of thing that I think everyone will come across or have the need of. But if you're using Tableau in partnership with other applications, it's absolutely necessary. But more importantly, you'll probably find third-party tools asking you to create pats. So that's probably going to be the first instance where you come across pats, where another application is requesting a pat so that it can do whatever it needs to do with Tableau based on your permissions. And so this is going to be really useful. Let's go back to the next line. Editable viz alt text. We did see this at conference on the keynote stage. This was the ability to edit the alt text for a visualization. So in essence, you can add a little bit of an accessibility hint that's created by someone. And some organizations do actually have accessibility guidelines on how to describe charts and how to describe things that people are seeing. So you can actually add some of that information into this in a way that's standardized and sort of transparent across the organization. I see this as a huge step up because accessibility has been something that Tableau is really focused on, and I think as they push more towards the web, that becomes even more important. And when you think of third-party applications and other tools working with Tableau, specifically screen readers in this instance, having this kind of information readily available means that Tableau can actually present this information to screen readers and other third-party tools that read this kind of information much more readily and more more performant and sort of more optimized as well. So that's something nice to see. Unified tooltips. Now this is an interesting one. This is borrowing a term that we've seen in charts, tooltips, but it's actually not necessarily related to charts. So let's try and describe this. So what you can do in this sort of addition is when you hover over tooltips, when you hover over a pill, they used to call them, or a calculation or something on the marks on columns or rows and shelf, these calculation sort of pills you get in Tableau. When you hover over them, you have the ability to see quick information about that particular pill. Now, this is really handy because when you've had a field that has an error, there's actually an example here on screen where you'll see there's if I click on it just here, you'll see it just coming up now. There it is. When you click on it, you see the error, and it means you can go and fix the error without having to open the calculation. You can just go directly to the problem and fix it without having to open them. Also, when you hover over filters, it's nice to be able to see what filters are set. And if you've got any sort of complex sets, it's also nice to be able to get some quick information along with the calculation and how that works. But this, I think, this feels like to me a bit of groundwork for something that's coming. Having this information be displayed and being visual suggests that there's something else coming in the future that's going to need this level of sort of communication. Essentially, think of it as a way of talking to a user without having to ask them to go into something. And so that might be handy when something about the way we work with calculations changes in the future. Some hints, we saw things like shared modeling on stage at the Tableau conference, so that's not in this release, I don't believe. So maybe when those features come, they will be leaning on this kind of capability to save you having to go into calculations. So that's a super useful hint. There'll also be a few changes, I think, with the way search works in this particular release as well. So we'll be sort of messing around with Tableau a little bit more to kind of find out what those are. Anyway, that's Unified Tooltips, really, really nice. Salesforce Data Cloud connector. So Salesforce Data Cloud is super interesting. I didn't really realize this at the time, but it started off as Salesforce Marketing Cloud or something. Then it was branded as Genie. I think the Genie announcement was pretty big. And then it's now been sort of branded again as Salesforce Data Cloud. And the connector is essentially a new connector that's being brought into Tableau. And it essentially allows us to do what Francois was showing us on the keynote stage, essentially to be able to go from Salesforce Data Cloud directly into Tableau. But the interesting thing here is this is a connector, so it suggests that you can also instigate a connection from Tableau itself. So let's have a read. Salesforce Data Cloud connector makes it seamless to analyze data from Data Cloud in Tableau. The Data Cloud connector is driverless, which means it doesn't need any installation or anything. And data spaces were enabling you to create visualizations specific to a data space. So this is obviously Salesforce terminology. I don't know what a data space is. Data spaces are logical partitions to organize metadata, data, and processes for relevant stakeholders in Data Cloud. There's a lot of data in data. Additionally, the Data Cloud connector shows object label instead of the object API name. Nice. Object API name can be super frustrating when you're working with data in Tableau, because what people actually want is the object label. So that's a nice little touch in the Tableau connection UI. This creates a more user-friendly experience when choosing tables to build data sources. The connector also supports an additional 11 functions, including date time functions, improving your content creation and data analysis process. I would love to know what these 11 functions are and what you couldn't do before, actually. So I'll have to dig into that documentation when it comes out. Be interesting to see. I need to try Salesforce Data Cloud because they did sort of sell it as a good way of sort of stringing up data sets. And it's really only going to be valuable to someone who's using Salesforce. That's the only real use case I can think of. If you're using a lot of Salesforce and you happen to have other data and you want to bring it together, this will be a great tool. But if you're not using Salesforce, I'm still yet to be sort of compelled about getting just this functionality to be able to bring you other data sources from everywhere. After all, Tableau is a pretty agnostic platform, as it were. So it's actually quite easy for you to stand up your own sort of instances and warehouse that kind of do all this, but you might not have as nice an interface and as nice a setup. So that's something to sort of think about. Also, data engineering is a topic that's coming up a lot. So data engineering and this kind of capability might sort of be sort of butting heads a little bit. So it'd be interesting to see what this looks like once you actually get a hand on it and have a go. Google Analytics Connector 4. Connect to event data from Google Analytics 4 property. The Google Analytics 4 connector is available in the Tableau Exchange. So I don't know if this is already available. Let's go have a look. Let's go say Tableau Exchange. And we might already have, I could just go to the connectors page here. Let's see if it's in here. Let's see. Google Analytics 4 is already there. So this is already out. So we can already make a video about it and just say that it's out. New in 23.2, but it's already out. Anyway, Google Analytics 4. Essentially, Google changed the system, the Google Analytics system, and so this change had to happen. And to install this connector, you need to download this. It's a taco file. I don't know what taco stands for, but essentially it's a taco file that you put into a specific directory, depending on whether you're on Mac, Windows, and the various locations. It's kind of annoying that you have to kind of do this. I mean, I have Tableau Prep and a desktop, so I'm going to have to do at least these 4 steps. But yeah, if you have server as well, then it's quite a bit of work to put the connector in the right place. But at least it's a one-time activity. I'd be interested to know what updates are like. It actually works with 23.1 and later. So it won't work with older versions from 2022, but it will work with the current release. So we can actually indeed try this. So I'll try this out and see what it's like. I've actually done a video on Google Analytics connector, so I'm going to have to update it because there's a new connector. The Amazon S3 connector. Now, this was actually really, really nice to hear at conference. It was announced. It was really good. What they talked about is the ability to connect to here, Parquet, CSV, and Excel file data in your S3 bucket. So essentially, if you have all these files in your S3 bucket, you can essentially query it without having to do anything to them. So it's available in Tableau Cloud as well as the Tableau Exchange. And I believe that is also right here. So this is a beta. It's actually labeled as a beta, so you can test it. I think it's actually been out, in the wild for a little bit longer, and this is sort of the soft release, and then there'll be an official release when it comes out of beta. But essentially, this interesting thing here is using Tableau's hyper technology to provide fast query performance to S3. And so in essence, you can put all your files there. You can even set up an automation to keep putting files to a specific bucket. Then essentially Tableau is able to query that bucket without having to essentially sort of do anything. So that's quite nice. Again, I have to try that. So 2 videos already that I can make, which is going to be fantastic. Amazon Athena connector, third-party IDP. IDP stands for identity provider. Let's have a look at this. So use industry-leading third-party identity providers such as Azure AD or Okta to manage secure authentication to Amazon Athena data sources. So what this is essentially saying is, hey, look, if you're using Amazon Athena and you use some of these authentication mechanisms, you're able to use that inside of Tableau. It sounds like previously you couldn't. Using the OAuth configuration for an identity provider, you have increased flexibility and security of connections, along with multi-factor authentication to important data in Athena. That sounds like a very specific use case, and it's not, again, Amazon Athena is not something I've come across. So yeah, if you know why that's important, let me know in the comments, and let me know how much time that's going to save you as well. Filter and sort in Lineage. So the Tableau Lineage capability as part of the data management add-on is getting a little bit more of a sort of spruce. This has been one of those features that keeps getting nicer and nicer and nicer. And I think, in 2 years' time, you look back at this and the quality and the richness of this metadata tool will actually be quite good and quite useful. It's just a shame that not many people see it because it sits behind the data management add-on, which you have to add on to your essentially total estate, as it were. And it's charged not by the, number of people who want to use it, by as a percentage of your total usage, and that percentage you have to get in touch with Tableau to find out what it is. I think it moves around. So this feature is really nice, but unfortunately not many people see it or use it. Nonetheless, the Lineage page now has a search option, so you can now search for fields. There is also the option to sort by a number of downstream sheets. Both of these capabilities are especially useful when you have large numbers of workbooks and data sources, and either want to quickly find a field of interest or identify fields that are used the most and proceed with the impact analysis for any potential changes. So think of this as like it's just a UX, a user experience kind of a feature, the ability to search and sort, and the ability to sort of see information downstream and upstream, which is the terminology for how Lineage works essentially. So that's super useful. Omnibox integration with mixed content search. So this is interesting. So the Omnibox is when you've searched in Tableau server, the Omnibox, when you click into the search and it comes up with like 3 items and then 3 data sources and then 3 workbooks, that's called the Omnibox. So you can kind of see it here that it's been integrated into this search area when you're searching for data. So you can actually start typing and it brings up results. So Omnibox is a dialog that provides a set of quick search functionalities, including recent search terms and content suggestions, to improve the data discovery experience. Omnibox has been integrated into the Connect to dialog, the entry dialog for users to search and connect to datasets. So it's a pretty straightforward, nice little addition there. Custom scheduling REST API methods. Interesting. So leverage the new REST API custom scheduling methods to schedule your refreshes and subscriptions in Tableau Cloud. So nice. So there's essentially an API. There's essentially an API to do custom scheduling through the REST API. Essentially a method, when you talk about APIs, is a way of instructing the system to do something. So once you know how to use methods generally in an API, when they add more methods, that's essentially adding more capability to the API to do certain things. In this case, it's to schedule refreshes and subscriptions. What that means is you could more sort of quickly change these schedules and refreshes and subscriptions as well. Because you're using an API, you can build something on top of it that kind of goes in and sets these up. So custom scheduling was previously only supported via the user interface, but now with API support, you can better support third-party workflows, scripts, and automation for your scheduling needs. So essentially, you could build, let's say, a tool that automatically creates a schedule for newly published content if it has some sort of change request system. So let's say the end user business wants to change a schedule for something, and the scheduling or the automation doesn't exist. This API could go and create that schedule for that business use case once it's approved, without someone having to go in and manually do it. So it's a really nice touch. Virtual connections, additional connector support. Virtual connections are still very interesting, very useful. Again, sit behind the data management add-on. They've got a few more data sets here: Dremio, Cloudera, Hadoop, IBM DB2, Kivios, Kubol, Presto. Man, databases and data sources just have some of the weirdest names. I just don't know why they just can't call them simpler things. But anyway, new connector support for virtual connections. That's kind of a really nice feature set. We've also got here view acceleration support, so workbooks created from data sources leveraging virtual connections and now support view acceleration. View acceleration loads views faster by pre-computing and fetching the workbook's data in the background. So that's again a nice addition. We've also got view acceleration recommendation enhancement. So views can now recommend views for acceleration to workbook owners and admins. Okay, so that's kind of nice. You can sort of say to an admin and author, say, hey, can you speed up this workbook? In addition to workbook query time and usage factors, viewer suggestions are now inputs of the automated view acceleration recommendation service. So, wow, so interesting. So this is kind of weird, because what it's essentially doing is giving end users, viewers, a button where they can click to say, make this go faster. The only problem I think is that who won't click that button? You know what I mean? So that would be an interesting dynamic to see how that works. I wonder if you can restrict who can do that. Obviously, you have to have access to the workbook to be able to hit that button, but how do you just stop everyone hitting it? And maybe this sort of automation side is if everyone hits everything, then it's obviously going to choose the highest sort of priority item. So it balances out over time. But the first time people see that, I think everyone will just smash that, and then it won't work, and then they'll be like, oh, what's the point in that, you know? Or the worse yet, as an admin or as an author, you'll start getting messages from people saying, hey, I saw a button to enhance the workbook. Tableau said you could make it go faster. Isn't that true? Like that kind of stuff, myths that kind of form up in business enterprise very easily. Timestamps for Tableau Prep outputs, that's kind of nice. You could kind of do this already, but what it suggests is you can now add a dynamic date or date time stamp to Tableau Prep output names for published data sources and file outputs. Oh, so this is for the name of the file as well. Interesting. Tableau Prep can dynamically update the timestamp when the flow is run via Tableau Prep Builder or Tableau Prep Conductor. This means you no longer have to manually enter parameter values. So they did have parameter feature that could actually let you do this, and you could go in and type the update date. So this is kind of nice. I think in specific instances where you want the dates to reflect when the flow ran, I don't think you're going to change your workflow if you want the dates to reflect something else like a version or release or when something was actually launched. But nonetheless, yeah, kind of nice to have that as well. Just a nice to have. Admin Insights enhancements. So Admin Insights are essentially the Tableau Cloud equivalent of the Postgres database. They give you information about activity on your Tableau Cloud site. Enhancements include the job performance data source, now includes Tableau Bridge Extract Refresh job data. This enables you to better track your Tableau Bridge Extract jobs and include data on your agents, pools, runtimes, and error messages. I do need to do a new video on Tableau Bridge. I haven't done it in a while and a lot has changed, so we'll maybe do something like that. But essentially, the way Tableau Bridge works is you have a computer inside of your network, and then you have Tableau Cloud, and the computer inside of your network is running Tableau Bridge and is responsible for going and updating the data sources. Essentially, Tableau Cloud will say, hey, I need fresh data, and the little Tableau Bridge client on the computer internally in your network will go off and get the data. The way this works is, there are pools of Tableau Bridge agents. So you might have multiple computers that are responsible for doing this. And that is actually recommended in big organizations. And the agents are sort of each individual instance of the applications running. So you could actually have multiple agents running at the same time. And so the error message and runtimes are just dependent on how you've set everything up. The TS users data source now tracks your organization's Tableau desktop usage. So that's cool if you're using license-based login management. You now have the ability to see that data here. The brand new subscriptions data source lets you see which users have subscriptions and allows you to create a complete picture of your subscription health in your deployment when combined with other admin insights data sources. So essentially giving you a feel for who's actually subscribing to your data, who's getting sort of pings in their emails. That could be a good sign of sort of engagement as well. So it's a nice metric to have alongside other metrics. You could find people that are not logging in but are getting subscriptions, and so you can kind of make some sort of judgment call if you apply sort of email opening percentages and say, hey, that's working. Or you could use it to troubleshoot, for example. Maybe you see there's a big list of subscriptions and they all click on the same report at the same time, which causes a performance spike on the Tableau server or Tableau Cloud. That's going to be pretty nice. Again, this is only Tableau Cloud for now. I should say that. I'm assuming this will come to Tableau. Actually, you wouldn't need to come to Tableau server because Tableau server has Postgres, so you kind of have this already. So just ignore me. Tableau Catalog sensitivity label. So this is new. One thing I've noticed in some of these Tableau cataloging and data lineage sort of features is they're adding color, and they're not shy about the colors. I mean, I've seen purple here quite strong a few times, and there's a few other colors, and I just think, Wow, they're really deviating from the Tableau color palette, but I think this is a sign of things to come. I think we're going to get some wild, bold Salesforce colors in the system, so be on the lookout for those. Nonetheless, Tableau Catalog sensitivity labels. You can now label your Tableau assets, databases, tables, columns, and data sources, and virtual connections and flows as sensitive. It's quite a lot you can label. With asset labels, you can choose a generic value or create your own depending on how your organization classifies sensitive data. Labeling sensitive data will help guide decision-making for users that are shaping, publishing, viewing, or governing data in Tableau. This feature was built API first. Whoa, wow. So no matter where you store sensitive information today, you can import them into Tableau. So this feature was built API first. So what I think that means is, look, you're not going to have to sit there and manually go and find these things. There's going to be some sort of API for you to dictate what is sensitive, or there is something else going on that I don't fully understand. One of those two things. Maybe it's both. Maybe I think I know and I don't understand it at the same time. Who knows? Activity log enhancement. So the activity log now provides even more visibility into what's happening in your Tableau Cloud site at near real time. The activity log now tracks usage of personal access token, login activities, views for workbooks and data sources, and that's pretty standard. Copy paste protection on mobile. So on mobile devices, admins can now protect sensitive data leakage from Tableau Mobile by disabling copy and paste via clipboard on iOS and Android. That's actually quite nice. This was previously on iOS, I believe. I think you could disable, for example, iOS, you could disable running on jailbroken devices. And I think you could disable the ability to take screenshots in the previous release. This adds the ability to do copy and paste protection, which if you're using an iPad is actually quite handy. It's a very sort of easy way to get data out of your systems. Essentially, you go in. What I think is also interesting is that, these devices are getting pretty smart. So if I took a screenshot of a table as an example, if you look on iOS, you're actually able to just copy text off the screenshot. So I think I have to check whether this is actually going to block that as well. I think in the previous release, screenshot protection was actually enabled. I'll have to double check that as well. So I'll let you know in the comments. But nonetheless, yeah, it's pretty nice to have. Dark mode on mobile. Man, we need dark mode on desktop. I can't really see this. So let's see if we can see this. There we go. That's a better image. So this is what it looks like. So I don't know if this is basically taking the standard assets and flipping the colors a little bit for you, or if, in some respects, it kind of depends on what you've designed. If you've designed something with deliberately white colored backgrounds, I don't think this is going to be able to do it unless it's applying a filter on the thumbnails and it's using that to kind of invert everything. That's a pretty cool thing if that's what it's doing. So we'll have to wait and see. So dark mode on mobile, that's going to be handy. Embedding API version 3.6. Man, the embedding API is moving so fast. I think every month there's been a new release. So the Embedding API v3.6 enables developers to bring self-service analytics to end users. The API allows you to create an embedded authoring session with a blank workbook. Oh, wow. So embedded authoring session with a blank workbook essentially means you can say, hey, here's a data source, go build something. So essentially you don't have to build your own chart builder. You can just use Tableau and give it a data source and you get an embedded authoring session. Developers can now programmatically export their embedded dashboard, worksheet, or story to CSV, Excel, PDF, or PowerPoint without showing the Tableau UI. Nice. That basically means when you click download, it doesn't pop up the little pop-up that looks like Tableau that is completely doesn't look like your application. So if you have a PDF, CSV, Excel button, what this is going to offer is the ability to just get the PDF without any sort of middle step in there. The Embedding API 3.6 also enables developers to handle errors in the external applications when Tableau connected apps flow is failing. So external applications, hold on. Let me read this again. The Embedded API v 3.6 also enables developers to handle errors in their external applications when the Tableau connected apps flow is failing. So basically, when the flow of connected apps is failing, you can handle errors inside of your applications a lot better. Whereas maybe before, the connected apps and Tableau weren't feeding that information back, so it was a little bit difficult. Image role enhancements. So we saw this at conference, actually, the ability to support GIFs, but also just supporting other image types, so SVG, WebP, JFFF, ICO, BMP, and GIF. in addition to the PNG, JPEG, and JPEG formats they initially announced. SVG is going to be a huge one because SVG are like gems. If you don't know what an SVG is, imagine if you could draw an image, not by drawing it, by describing it using a mathematical formula. That essentially makes it vector. So instead of saying here's a line, you have 2 points and you define how that line and the angle goes. And then the magic is that you can scale that up to any size because it's just maths. You can just scale it up to as big as you need or as small as you need. And so they actually scale much, much, much nicer. So SVG icons are a really good way of actually portraying certain things. The other thing is that they're quite small because they're just mathematical formulas. They take next to no data. I've seen incredible, pieces of design which have been, fit into a megabyte because everything on the page is just an SVG icon, and they're actually designed for the web to portray really sharp images. So that's going to be great to see. I think they'll be great for logos. They'll be great for brand icons. They'll be great anytime you want to use something. To me, that's going to be the format to go and try and find. And most logos do exist in an SVG format, or you can turn them into an SVG format as well if you have the original vector files to create that. Another vector format is a PDF. For example, if you create vector art in PDFs, you can zoom into that and the text will stay very clear. So that's really cool. They've also got the limit going up to 100. I don't know what it was before. I think it was quite small. And then the file size has gone up to 200 kilobytes from 123 or something. So they've given us a little bit more wiggle room to allow more images. 200 kilobytes. If you have a good image compression algorithm, you can get a lot of large images into 200 kilobytes. So that's going to literally open up the bandwidth to so many more options. And again, I've done videos on how to use Cloudinary. I'm actually going to be talking on the Cloudinary platform very soon about this particular capability, so look out for that. You can also remove requirements with no need for image links to contain extensions. So you can just have a link and it doesn't have to have an extension. I think Tableau will figure out the extension just by going to the file itself. So that's kind of really good to see. So I think a lot of APIs and systems also don't necessarily always specify an extension because it can kind of break the way links work. And also from a security perspective, it just means that you're not opening yourself to attack by specifying the image format, and therefore someone can package something nasty in that image format. Anyway, data-driven alerts REST API. So our new REST API endpoint enables you to create data-driven alerts for visualizations with a single access. Now you can programmatically create data-driven alerts so key people are notified in their email. So this is nice. Being able to programmatically control the alerts is really nice because, again, it's kind of creating this way of giving people an interface to create these alerts, and sort of go off. So enables you to create it with a single access. Okay, now you can. What I'd be interested to see is if what they mean by single access means you don't even need you just need an x-axis, or you just need you don't need an axis, like a single column basically. So I'm interested to see what that actually explicitly means. But I think I may be wish casting here. Maybe it's just as simple as you need one axis, but your chart's going to need still two or whatever. Tableau site. Key people are notified in their email, Tableau site, and connected Slack workspaces when data reaches the threshold. Nice. Geospatial analysis enhancements. Geospatial analysis with Tableau is more comprehensive than ever. New enhancements to the spatial calculation language allows you to answer a broad range of questions from your geospatial data. Outline creates new formatting options. Shape type enables new pivots based on geometry type, e.g. distinct treatments of roads versus regions. Very nice. And length creates new opportunities for route planning. We've also made it easy to bring spatial geometries into Tableau by supporting the full GeoJSON language during import. So this feels like a very, whatever. Well, what's the big deal? Well, here's the thing. Outline creates new formatting options. So you can essentially outline a polygon. So the outline is kind of useful because what you can do is you can also buffer the outline. So you can use existing capabilities to enhance these new features, if that makes. Shape type enables new pivots based on a geometry type, e.g. distinct treatments for roads versus regions. So you can treat roads and regions very differently. That's kind of nice. And length creates new opportunities for route planning. So I'd be interested to dig into length a little bit and just see exactly what how that is actually, it's not the same as distance. So length could specifically allow you to calculate the length of a road, for example. And if you know those roads and you know the routes taken, you could sort of compute travel distances from lines much easier. For example, what's the length of a river? Well, if you've got the polygon, you should be able to compute the length quite nicely. So having that as a useful sort of data point, so you know how far a boat has to travel, is kind of useful. We've made it easier to bring spatial geometries in with full GeoJSON support. So this is another spatial sort of file format. It has been supported before, but I think it's talking about the full support. Again, I'm not a geospatial ninja, so I'll probably point over to Mark Reed to kind of break that down for us at some point. Using usage metrics enhancements, so track content shares. This is good. Usage metrics enhancements. Total shares is now displayed as a metric. So how many times something has been shared is quite nice. So you've got total favorites, total views, and total shares. And you've got a little usage section popping up. So hopefully that's going to get populated with more types of, I think what I'd love is, bounce rates. So you go to a viz, how quickly does it take for people to sort of hop off and you to be able to find the, the time for that. So let's say 30 seconds. If the high bounce rate is high, that means people aren't actually looking at it. They're just sort of scanning it and going very quickly. But then again, people are spending a lot of time. Maybe you want to optimize that and get it down. So you could look at it in sort of lots of different ways. Card navigation improvements. So we've made navigation, the content grid, a little bit easier and more accessible, adding full keyboard navigation support, including selection and batch action. So essentially just using your keyboard, you can navigate, select stuff, and move around with just the keyboard without having to use the mouse. Again, another accessibility feature. Good to see. Last two, analytics extensions enhancements. Now you can compress requests sent to and responses from your analytics extension server. This will help you avoid running into payload constraints when using table extensions that involve large data sets. So essentially being able to compress a request means you can get sort of more data through the same pipeline. To enable this capability, analytics extensions admin can set flag gzip enabled to true. So gzip is a way of sort of compressing data and information, and I think some tools actually support compressed files in this format, so it allows you to fit more into basically the same request without hitting any sort of limitation. Tableau Cloud email customization. Customize emails by enabling or disabling links in subscriptions and data-driven alerts emails in site settings. This capability is specifically useful in embedded contexts where you want to provide a white label experience and drive usage of your application. So that's kind of nice. So again, another feature for the embedded use case. It really feels like Tableau wants to fade into the background here. A lot of the embedding capabilities, a lot of the platform announcement at Tableau conference, Tableau are more than happy for you to get rid of the Tableau logo and just build your own application around its platform, because they know it makes it sticky and they know it makes it easier for people to be a little bit more hooked into the product. So that's why those features are going to be coming thick and fast. Anything that ties you in, I'm sure they're going to love. Anyway, that is the full page. I've gone through all of that. Like I said, there will be some things that are, not announced and will make the list. So once the release is out, we'll obviously start making videos as always. And yeah, we'll go through the entire release. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Over the next few days, I'm also going to be trying to cover a few more bits of content that I haven't had a chance to cover before this release comes out. I think it's probably about 2 weeks away at this rate, so look out for that. It's going to be a pretty busy summer in terms of features, announcements, and obviously off the back of conference as well, there's other conferences happening, as well as interesting things happening in the competitor space as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.